Welcome to Celebrating the Show Online. Our guest today is Laurie Thompson, whose contribution to the Royal Melbourne Show as an inspector for 49 consecutive years and on the RASV Sheep Committee for the last 10 years, as well as the broader sheep industry across Victoria and in particular the Poll Dorset breed, has been outstanding both in skill and in the length of his contribution. He developed an early interest in sheep and breeding sheep, even though he grew up on a cattle property. He was recognised for his many decades of contribution by the RASV, the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria, with the President's Medal a few years ago, and he was quite surprised to receive that, and he's wearing it today, and also a life membership of the Poll Dorset Association just last year. Now, Laurie, we think that it's a real shame you're not at the Royal Melbourne Show this year doing your official inspections of the Poll Dorset exhibits. And we don't actually have a video of a Poll Dorset with us, but we do have a video of a Wiltshire Shorn ram. So we're going to ask you to take the boys and girls at home and the mums and dads who are watching us online through what an inspector is looking for in order to pass or not pass an exhibit as fit for competition at a royal show. So we're showing you the video now. Tell us, what would you be doing as an inspector?
Well, the first thing we do as an inspector when you go into the pen of the sheep, you first look at it to make sure it's up to breed standard for a start, visually. Then you examine the mouth on the sheep and to make sure that the setting, the teeth are correct, that the lamb's teeth are correctly positioned on the pad of the gum, and when the teeth start to erupt to the 12 months of age, the two teeth as we call it, they must sit neatly against the pad, not proceed out in front of it or back behind it. If they back behind it, we call it undershot. If they're out over it, we call it overshot. And if that's all fine, that end of it's right. Different breeds have different things you have to look for. But if it was Poll Dorset, then you have to inspect the scur on the head, which is a little horn growth, because they were developed from the Dorset horn. And that has to be within certain measurements of 35mm by 25. If they're over that, well, unfortunately, they have to be rejected. And then you've got your different wool lengths for different classes, which is bare shorn class, which they have to be closely and evenly shorn with a standard comb. And then you have your 2 centimetre class, which clearly states they must be closely and evenly, not over the 2 centimetres. And the woolly class. Years ago we had more different lengths, but that's what it is now. And the woolly class, they must be evenly trimmed all over.
Well, Laurie, I wonder, looking at this Wiltshire horn ram, whether you would consider, as Chief Inspector, that it is fit for competition at a royal show.
Well, I'd be in trouble if I said no, wouldn't I?
Yes.
Yes, I know we're passing for a royal show. Like the standard of sheep at Melbourne Royal is second to none. Some of the best sheep, more so in the past probably than now, but some of the best sheep ever bred in Australia were bred in the Melbourne Royal.
And as Chief Inspector, you play such a crucial role, particularly with the Poll Dorsets, for upholding the integrity of the competition at that preeminent level. We've actually kind of tricked you onto the program today because the Royal Agricultural Society of Victoria could not allow what would have been your 50th year consecutively as an inspector go by without having you actually inspect an exhibit. So President of the RASV, Matt Coleman, has joined us online here. Matt, did you want to say a few words about Laurie's contribution?
Absolutely delighted to, Lyndsey, and Laurie, like so many volunteers, but Laurie particularly, his contribution to the sheep industry and the life and lifeblood of the Royal Melbourne Show really is second to none. To have been a volunteer in various guises, including a member of our sheep committee and as a sheep judge and steward over 49, and this year being his 50th virtual year, really is an extraordinary contribution over many years, and the Royal Melbourne Show wouldn't be what it is without that contribution of our volunteers. So Laurie is just one of amongst thousands of volunteers that freely give of their time, energy, and a bit of their soul to the society, and I think that's makes the show the special place that it really is. So, Laurie, thanks for all that. To you, on behalf of sort of all volunteers, thanks for the contribution you make.
Well, the volunteer movement in the Show Society network across Australia is so significant that they say that the hours contributed by volunteers who are specialists, like Laurie with sheep, or specialists with horses, poultry, or they might be specialists with people, with helping people get around the showground and enjoying their show experience. The hours are so vast that they say it's the largest volunteer movement in the country, based on that time contributed. The number of volunteers, Matt, that are required for Melbourne Royal, I imagine, are quite significant, and the hours that go into it too. Do you have any sense of just how big that is?
Oh yeah, there's certainly thousands of volunteers. They come in all sorts of shapes and guises, but exhibitors, judges, stewards. There's certainly a few thousand volunteers, and I think that the 2019 Royal Melbourne Show, we estimated there was something like 16,000 hours of free volunteer labour provided to help our patrons get the most out of the Royal Melbourne Show. So it really is an extraordinary contribution, and we wouldn't be able to run the show without that volunteer labour support. So it really is extraordinary.
Laurie, I want to just steal a couple of quick moments with you, if it's okay to throw you just some final questions. I wondered if you could tell us about the proudest moment you've ever had at Royal Melbourne Show.
Yeah, well, I have to admit, the proudest moment I have had at the Royal Melbourne Show was the day I was presented with the President's Medal. I had no idea, and I never ever would have dreamt that I would have got such an award. I was there stewarding, and very casually, wasn't worried about anything. Everything seemed to be going well, and I saw Mark O'Sullivan and Stephen Spargo arrive to the ring, and in my terms, I put it, oh, that's good. The heavies have arrived. They're here for the judging of the champion ram. This is good. And I never took a great deal of notice, and they were over at the mic and I was called upon to come over, and I just thought, oh, well, this must be because I'm on the sheep committee. And I never realised what was going on until they started. And about Laurie was 43 years. And then I went like a plate of jelly, and I just couldn't respond properly. But that, without doubt, was the proudest moment I ever had at Melbourne Royal. As a matter of fact, outside a family thing, one of the proudest moments in my life. And
Well, it was a significant recognition for a significant contribution, and whilst you've been officiating now for 50 years, you've actually been attending the show and participating in the show for many years before that. I understand when you were a child and there was a polio outbreak, your parents said there is no way you were going to the Melbourne Show, and you were terribly disappointed. I wondered, you're probably terribly disappointed not to be there this year. What are you missing the most?
Yeah, I am disappointed it's not on this year. I missed the challenge, firstly, of going through the sheep and having a real good look at them prior to judging and stewarding and seeing them out on the floor and everything, but I do really miss not meeting up with so many friends and people who I've made over the journey. I think I can honestly say I've got people that I know and have made friends with right throughout Australia, and there's no better time than showtime to catch up with them and to socialise with them when the serious part of it's over. And the RAS have certainly provided all that with this new facilities they've got there now. I think it's one of the greatest areas you could probably have to display any animal in that big stock pavilion. And they've got the lounge there beside it and everything, and it is great to relax there and discuss things with so many friends after, and that's what I'm going to miss.
Well, the 2021 show can't come soon enough. We can't wait to see you there, Laurie. Laurie Thompson, congratulations on all of your achievements and your dedication to the show movement. Thank you very much for your time today, Matt Coleman. And thank you all at home for joining us on celebrating the show online, our virtual way to be together for the Royal Melbourne Show in 2020.